guys, and welcome to Mom Babes, where every mom is a babe. And if you're like, Christina, I don't feel like a babe, my toddler just peed all over me, then this channel is especially for you. I make videos for moms who don't always feel like a babe, but even if you don't feel like a babe, you're still a babe. And you are a creative, and if you're like, psh, I'm not creative, that's a lie, because raising a live human being is the most creative thing that there is. Be sure to subscribe and ding the bell to get notified each time I release a video so that you will never have to miss one. I love having you here. So today we are talking about dealing with disappointment. Wah, wah, wah. But like, honestly, it's something that I've dealt with a lot in my life, hence why I'm making this video. And it's something that is unfortunately a part of our life and something that's unescapable. So I am not like an expert on this. Like, I don't want this to come across like this is how you do this because I know so well. It's something that I've struggled with a lot. I'm probably still struggling with, but there are some things that I have done that have helped me. So I'm just gonna pass along these little tips. Let's get to it. First of all, I want to say I'm so sorry. Like, disappointments. So you can have very large disappointments that are more serious things. And then you can have like the everyday little disappointments, which I feel like as moms is like our entire day. It's like little disappointment, little disappointment, little disappointment until it culminates into this whole big disappointment. And so we're going to talk about first the ways that you can be disappointed. Some disappointments can be milestones in your life that you have hit and passed and it didn't look how you thought it was going to look, or you want to find true love and that hasn't happened for you, or you've wanted to start a family and that hasn't come through. Like, those are some very serious ones. You could be disappointed because of something that you felt like was a failure. That's something that I've really worked through a lot. You can be disappointed with a person that's close to you in how they handled a situation or an interaction with them. You can be disappointed with the world or your situation or your circumstances and just everything that's so crazy that's going on. So those are some ways that we can be disappointed. Let's get into a little bit of the brain science behind what your body is physically going through when disappointment is triggered. So the way that our brains work is that we have neurotransmitters in our brain, which basically send signals. It's how we process all kinds of information. Various parts of the brain process information differently. So typically, like a neurotransmitter, think of it like a hormone or something like that. Like, it's like a chemical that the brain communicates with. So typically neurotransmitters are never produced simultaneously. Usually a part of the brain will produce one or the other. But when it comes to disappointment, so I'm going to read for you a study by UCSD that was studying disappointment and how it actually functions in the brain. So two well-known neurotransmitters, glutamate and GABA, GABA, which is short for gamma aminobutyric acid, I probably didn't say that right, are released simultaneously by neurons in a small region of the brain called the lateral habenula to signal the emotion of disappointment. The more glutamate that is released relative to the GABA, the greater the disappointment signal the brain is likely to be. And the less glutamate released relative to the GABA, the smaller the disappointment signal should be. So visually, what this looks like is you have a smaller gap. So the gap is what creates the feeling that we experience as disappointment. And that's, melancholy and inertia, not wanting to do anything, depression, etc. So what antidepressants actually do is really can close the gap, and so that levels out your disappointment level. So in life, we have some that are like this in our brain and some that are like this. And essentially, a way to break it down a little easier is like, think of this as expectations. Like, this is your expectation for how a situation was going to go, and this is how the situation actually went. And sometimes, and this could be anything, like as a mom, it could be your morning routine. Like, I thought everyone was going to be happy and great, and this was my expectation for the morning routine. And actually, like, we were way down here. Both kids were crying simultaneously. I could barely fix them food and myself food and maintain my sanity. Not that that was my morning, but this is constantly happening in our brain all day long, is we have expectations, and like sometimes are like the whatever happens exceeds the expectation, and that's good, and that's going to produce like serotonin and dopamine and things like that. But when you do have this, which is what we're talking about, that's kind of where it comes from. So this is important though. Like, the point of this video is not to like eliminate this, because I don't think that's good. I think in life it's important to have expectations, and instead of doing this and lowering the expectations so they're here, just learning how to deal with this gap. And so that is what we are going to talk about. So when you're dealing with this in life, I guess your options are remove this and just not have any expectations for life, and just never have any goals, never achieve anything, never try anything. If I get disappointed or something hurts, I'm just gonna turn it off and walk away and just remove this element of my life. But that is not how we're gonna live. We are gonna keep our expectations here. We're not gonna do this. And what we're gonna work on is not necessarily, because you cannot control the outcome of things, not necessarily like raising this, but I mean, obviously doing the best. We all like want to live without disappointment, obviously. But when this is the result, how do we process that? How do we deal with that? How do we move forward in a way that is going to help our lives and get really good at this? One of my goals for you is to get very, very good at being disappointed. Do failure well. Do disappointment well. Become a professional at doing disappointment, because the more that you practice doing it well and handling it in your life, the more that that is going to become a pattern for you. That's going to become a habit. And then your disappointments that used to be like this, they're going to be the same. Like, it's still going to be this, and we still got here, but in your brain, it's going to be more like this. You know what I mean? So as you practice handling disappointments and processing them in a healthy way, we're going to turn this into this, not by actually shrinking it, but by adjusting your perspective. Did that work? Like fueling back, it gets smaller. The first thing I want to say, first and foremost, is that it's okay to be disappointed. It's okay that this day kind of sucked. It's okay that that thing didn't work out. It's okay that, this friendship that you thought was gonna go so great, like it didn't. Those are all bummer things, and it's okay to feel bummed about it. And so first step, and this is actually like almost the most important step and is very undervalued, is allow yourself to like sit in that sadness or that anger. I mean, not forever, but to allow yourself to feel all those emotions and allow yourself to be bummed for a second, and just be nice to yourself and tell yourself, it's okay that you're sad about this. It's okay that you're upset about this. It's okay that this was very disappointing. It's okay that this was hurtful. I'll give you an example in my life. So when I went to a therapist, I highly recommend therapy, by the way, for processing disappointments. It's super helpful. But in therapy, my therapist, very clever woman, said to me, and this was a while ago, like back in college, but she was talking about processing for me. And so she's like, Christina, you're an artist. Like, you're a creative person. Why don't you just process your emotions creatively? Like, and I never thought about this before. So it was really interesting and game-changing for me. And she's like, when you're sad about something, like when it rains, go out into the rain and, experience the thunder and feel it deeply. And so what I did when I was super sad about a situation is I went to school in Tulsa, and they have a river there. So I went and sat by the river. And it was like storming so hard, and I had my journal and the pages were getting all wet, and the rain was pelting my face, and it was really cold and uncomfortable, but it actually did help me really connect with my sadness. And so if you are a creative person, if you embrace that side of yourself, doing something like that to process through your emotions, help you connect with your emotions, can be really, really helpful. If you're more of like an intellectual person, maybe making a list or journaling about what happened, why it happened, your analysis of what you would do differently next time, your hypothesis of how it would go in a situation. If you're more of an intellectual, that might be a way to better process your sadness, or do more brain research on how sadness happens. Allow yourself time to just sit in that and just be okay with being sad for a second and allowing yourself to feel that. I feel so much, I do this all the time where I'm like, but there's people with these terrible life situations and I can't feel sad because they're in a worse situation than I am. But that's, first of all, not even helping them. And second of all, it's not helping you work through what you need to work through to get to the other side of this. It's okay to be sad about something. Even if it's something that you like, you're like, I really shouldn't even feel that disappointed about it. That's okay. Just recognize that the feeling's there and let yourself sit there. Now, you may not, with kids, always have time to go out in the rain and journal and whatever, but you can find a quiet place for 30 seconds and just sit there and be like, wow, that was a bummer. Or when you do have time at the end of the day, when they're asleep, highly recommend sleep training if you haven't done it yet. I'll link to the video. When they're asleep, you can take a second and go somewhere outside. Sometimes I find is really refreshing. And sometimes I'll just look at the moon, and I don't know why, but the moon and the stars, like just staring up outside, is very calming, and it helps me remember and realize, A, how small I am in the world, and that gives me perspective, which we'll get into in a second, but also it's just a very peaceful place to allow myself to feel what I need to feel to move on. After we've allowed ourselves to feel our feelings, to kind of explore it fully, then we will only then move on to the next step, which is to get some more perspective on the situation. So remember what I said earlier about like, don't think about other people's problems, just focus on your own. So I'm going to contradict myself and reverse it. Now that you've given yourself permission to feel all the things, we are going to put ourselves in the world and get some perspective about what is actually happening and how the situation relates. I'm going to give you an example. So for Halloween, our city does this super adorable Halloween carnival in its like downtown area, and all the kids get dressed up, and we went last year and it was a lot of fun. And there's like little games and costume contest, and they get to do a tour of the fire department. Super, super cute. So I was very excited to go and dress the kids up, get some cute photos, and go down to this Halloween carnival. I was really excited. Like, this will be a really fun family adventure. However, at the time, my kids were barely 1, barely 3. So, in a very touchy stage. And, as I'm putting on their costumes, they all of a sudden decided that they did not like their costumes and treated them like they were on fire, burning their skin, and both proceeded to just cry a ridiculous amount. The temper tantrums were so bad that it took forever to get them ready. First of all, I was all ready. Austin was all ready. We were ready to go and do this thing, but they took forever to get ready. We couldn't get any photos. And then they were just in a terrible mood, and it was getting late and close to their bedtime. And I was like, this isn't even fun anymore. We're not even gonna go. So we didn't end up going to the carnival, which sounds like a really dumb thing to be disappointed about, but I was disappointed about it because I was really, not even like, for them it's fun. But for me too, like, these are the fun things that you look forward to as a mom. Fun things that you want to build into your family. And so I was so like, really, like, the only reason we're not doing this is because you're having a bad attitude. Like, that's the only reason. It's not because, we couldn't do it, which just feels silly. That's like my example. Not going to the Halloween carnival when we wanted to go. That's my example. When I'm talking about reminding yourself of the bigger picture, I take a step back from that situation. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, this is a bummer. We didn't get to do this thing, but in the grand scheme of life, we're gonna have lots of other opportunities to do fun family things. This isn't the end all be all of family activities. Part of the reason that I do this is because I love my kids and I wanna build a fun childhood for them, and I want them to have fun memories of their family. And so it brings it back to the bigger picture, which is the kids and, also what their needs are. Yes, I really want to go to this carnival, but they probably just need to go to bed. And so honoring them in the family too. I am not like a kid-centric home person. Like, I'm very much about, the adults are the adults and the kids do not run the home. But at the same time, being aware of what their needs are. And I love my kids, so put on my big girl pants and was like, oh, that's a bummer. But then was like, but it's really for them and I love my kids and it's okay. So once you've felt everything, once you've gotten some perspective on the situation and looked at the bigger picture, the next thing that you are going to do is be grateful for the situation. So what we're training our brains to do is when we come across a negative and disappointing situation is to reverse it. So instead of releasing the gamma and the glutamine, we're going to get more dopamine and serotonin into our brain by just being thankful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it around and be like, okay, I was really disappointed on that situation. What can I be thankful for in that specific situation? Like what good came out of that actual situation? And even now I feel myself like being resistant, being like, well, nothing good came out of that situation. It was just awful and meh, I don't want to look at the positive. So that's like, you know, what our brain naturally wants to do. They say the brain is like 75% negative. I need to look at that more because gosh, it's awful. But I feel that about the situation, but we're going to do this exercise. So good things that came out of it. I guess I learned a lesson about, you know, not like the next time we go through one of these things where I have expectations of what the family's going to do and we don't go, I'll have the practice of being like, wait, let's think about the bigger picture because I did that last time. And so now my brain is in the habit of, okay, let's stop, think about the bigger picture. And so one good thing that will come out of it is I will handle that situation better, hopefully. At least I'll do it enough and enough and enough to where eventually like I'll be like a professional at like, dude, we have all these expectations, nothing happened, and it's totally cool. Like honestly, it's totally cool because I've done this a billion times. So there's that. I guess what is a good thing that can come out of it is that it's really funny now. Like we have all these pictures of them bawling their heads off and like we can laugh about it now, but in the moment it was like super not fun. So there's some humor that came out of that. I feel like there should be more good things, but we're just gonna baby steps and at least focus on those two good things from this specific situation. So once you find the good in that situation, then we're gonna take it even further and you're gonna start being thankful for other things going on in your life, like other situations. So we're gonna step away from the Halloween event and we're gonna say, man, I love my family. I'm so glad that we have our health. I'm so glad that, you know, I can run and work out and I'm so glad we have food every day, you know, and go into the other aspects of your life and be grateful for those things. That is so good for you. It's so good for your brain. It's so good for your perspective and it's gonna help even out that disappointment. So even if you're like that person that cannot find any positive that came out of the situation, even so, at least look at the rest of your life and find something to be grateful for, something to be thankful for, and focus on that thing. Like if you can't deal with the disappointing thing because it's hurtful and painful, then focus on the other thing that is going well. There is something, like you are alive. There is something that's going well for you. And another thing that has helped me with disappointment in my life is to make a goal that kind of supersedes the disappointment, basically in a way to come back swinging. When you go through something that is hard, when you go through a failure, when you're so disappointed, the weight of it becomes a wall for you to even like think or pursue that. Let's make a plan, let's make a goal, and it doesn't have to be lofty. Let's make a little goal that is a step in the direction toward conquering that disappointment. So for me, in my small example, it could be, okay, well, we didn't do this Halloween carnival thing, but you know, we're gonna try again on actual Halloween and see how that goes. Which the cool thing about this story is we actually had a great, because the carnival was pre-Halloween, so on actual Halloween, they got dressed up in their costumes just fine because #toddlers decide when and they like and don't like things and it never makes any sense. And we had this beautiful time just walking around outside and enjoying the community. That's one of the things I love about Halloween too, is that everyone actually comes outside. You know, back in the day when people used to live in like villages where you had to actually leave your house to get water and to go to the market and stuff. And now we have cars and we like never, you know, we don't have that village feeling. Halloween brings back like that village feeling where you can actually like see where everyone lives and say hi to people. And at nighttime, and I mean, as an artistic person, the dressing up is super fun too. So It ended up being a really great experience, but that's because we tried again. Because I could have been like, no, we tried to dress them up like the other night. That was miserable. We're just not even going to do this. And then I would have missed out on this beautiful, fun Halloween evening. Whereas I came back swinging and I was like, this really failed. This was terrible. And then that didn't prevent me from being like, well, it might be terrible, but we're still going to try again. You know what I mean? And it's never like, I don't feel like it's the smartest to go into things and have this expectation of, I mean, yes, we want to, I'm not talking about this. Like, we want to have expectations for our life, but to say, hey, I'm going to have this expectation, but if we end up with this, that's okay. That's what we're trying to get to, is being comfortable with the disappointment. And if the disappointing thing is like, you know, like more real than a Halloween carnival and like super painful and disappointing. So even if you can't make a goal in that area, if you need a break from it, that's okay too. Like, we're going to take a break and we're going to make a goal in this other area, and maybe this other thing that is going really well or we're really thankful for, we're going to make progression there, because that's going to bring positivity into our lives. And then once we get enough confidence from this other thing, we're gonna circle back to the disappointing thing. Ha ha ha, gotcha. Because the whole point is to be able to come back swinging. Another thing that is super helpful while you're dealing with disappointment is to surround yourself with good people and find a safe person to talk to about it. Someone that you really trust, someone that you know is gonna listen. And you know, just be honest with them and say, hey, this is really disappointing. I just need to vent about this. I find I just need to vent about this is very helpful, because people are loving and want to give advice. But when you're dealing with disappointment, when you hear advice, I feel like all you actually hear is, you did this wrong and this is all your fault, which is not what we're trying to get to. But if you preface with, hey, this was really disappointing for me. Do you mind if I vent to you? And they'll either say yes or no. I've also had a disappointing day. Find someone else. I don't know. If you have good people, I don't think they'd say that, but maybe they might say that, which is a disappointment. And then you can process that disappointment and the original disappointment with the other safe person. And if you don't feel like you have any safe people, go get a therapist. A therapist is a great person to talk to about all these things that are frustrating you. And they have really great tools for actually helping you move forward and get victory in these areas. One of the things that I really, really, really want to teach my kids, because it's something that I did not do well, was to celebrate your failures, to really relish the idea that you're trying. Like, there is no shame in trying. There's no shame in being a beginner, being there, duking it out, fighting your fight. There is like that should be the most celebrated thing. We live in this world that kind of only celebrates successes, but I think the trying is sometimes like the hardest part. The trying is the most painful part, because it's the gap. It's the part in which you haven't reached your success yet, and there's still a lot of disappointment and maybe insecurity there. But despite the disappointment and the insecurity and the negative feelings, you are working toward the success, but it hasn't been realized yet. And so I think that is one of the most powerful places that you could ever be, and should be one of the most celebrated places. So a failure, you know, as it happens, just means that you tried something. And especially if it's like your first time or first few times trying something, you need to be nice to yourself and give yourself grace and say, hey, you know, I've only tried this many times. It's okay that this didn't work out. I was really hard on myself, especially in my 20s. I was not like good at failing at all. And at a lot of like, I don't know, very intense, I'm a very intense person anyway, but like very intense goals, and got really frustrated and put myself in this negative cycle whenever I felt like I failed at something. And at the time I was auditioning a lot. And so auditioning, I feel like, is too a numbers game. So you don't get every audition. And instead of being like, yay, I got this one, I was more like, man, I didn't get this one or this one or this one or this one. And you can see that just was a total mess. And so I learned through that and through other disappointments in life. We also had a big like infertility thing, and I have a video on that I'll link to as well. But being able to let yourself feel things, get a greater perspective, decide that you are going to be thankful for the situation and for other things in your life, and then to come back swinging. I think if you can implement those things and practice them over and over again, it's been like a decade of me practicing this. It's always going to be something that we work toward. Something I think about all the time is the art of living well. How do we actually live well? And I think being able to manage disappointment well, do it well in a healthy way, is a big key to the art of living well. So hopefully this was helpful. Gosh, I know it's so painful. I just want to send you a big, big hug. I'm so sorry that you were disappointed by whatever situation it was. You're going to be okay. And if no one has told you yet today, you are doing a good job. Thank you guys so much for watching Mom Babes. It's just fun to have other people here to hang out and talk with, and I will catch you guys next time. Oh, and speaking of disappointments, I pulled a COVID on you guys because I look all like fancy with my earrings and my shirt, but I'm totally wearing sweatpants. So now you can be disappointed about my pretend fancy outfit.